When it comes to achieving a cleaner mix, one of my most crucial elements in music production is bussing. And that's why I prioritize bussing in all of my mixes. My name is Clarke, and welcome to Senior Musicians Unite, where on this channel, I try to inspire senior musicians like us with tips and tricks and techniques and industry info to help us get out there and keep creating great music and also to get heard. So, why is bussing so important and what is it? In a nutshell, bussing is the process of grouping multiple audio tracks together and processing them as a single unit. And this allows you to control and shape the sound of your mix with greater precision and ease. And by doing so, you can create a more cohesive and balanced sound that translates well across different systems. I demonstrate this in BandLab because that's the DAW I personally use, but all commercial DAWs have the same capability. So it's just a matter of you learning how to use it in the DAW that you happen to have. Now in BandLab, making a bus is pretty simple, right? You've got your input mixer section over here on the left side. I can't tell you how to do it on Pro Tools or whatever, but all DAWs pretty much have busing, so it's not a big deal. But you've got your mixer section here, and you've got your output section that is hard. It's a heavy line here, and you have your output section here, right? So what you want to do, of course, is you want to group like instruments together and route them to a sub channel prior to going out of the master mix. So if to do it in BandLab, I just go here and I just right click and it says insert stereo bus, and I can insert a stereo bus, and this bus pops up that's actually going to route to the master, but I don't have anything going to it at the moment. I go in, I name it, and I'll just name this one orchestra, right? I just for the sake. So this is my orchestra bus. So now I'm going to go to my input mixer section, and everything that I consider a piece of the orchestra, I will route it over here to this bus. So I'll take my strings. I think that's part of the orchestra. And if you notice, a window comes up and it says, what bus do you want to move this to? I want to move those strings to the orchestra. I'm going to move my brass to the orchestra. I'm going to move my pad. I'll move my pad to the orchestra just to give you an idea of how it works. So now when I play this song, what's going to happen is that the strings, the brass, and the pad will automatically be routed to this bus here, which is bus H, prior to it going out of the master. And if you look here, you can see that is what is happening right here. Notice the fader moving up and down. So I've just created a quick bus and moved those over to bus H, which in turn collects those together and routes them out to the master. So now I can control the strings and the brass and the pad from a single fader instead of me having to deal with three particular faders. I don't want to keep this, so I'm going to delete this real quick, but that just shows you how easy it is to create a bus. Why bother? One of the biggest challenges us as producers face when mixing without effective bussing is a cluttered sound. When individual tracks are not properly grouped and processed, the mix can quickly become overwhelming, making it difficult to pinpoint specific elements and make adjustments. And this can lead to a lack of clarity and definition, causing our tracks to sound muddy and unclear. I've created some tracks in Band in a Box where there are 4 or 5 guitars alone, not including a host of other real tracks. Now, if your songs are only 4 or 5 tracks, you probably don't need to do this. But if you have multiple tracks in your composition, along with quite a few vocals, you need to learn this technique. For example, this soul song I have here has quite a bit going on. So in this ballad that I'm working on, for an example, I have 21 tracks here that I'm trying to control. There's 21 tracks I need to mix. I've got my drums, my bass, my strings, my rhythm section right. I have 3 lead vocals down here because I always like to triple my lead vocals right. And I've got 3 background vocalists in here, right? So that's 21 tracks that I have to try to mix together to kind of make the song sound decent. I'll put it like that, right? It's a ballad. It's kind of a soupy ballad. I thought I would pick this one because this one would be a good idea to demonstrate the effects that you can get out of comping. And I'll let you a little bit of it, just a little bit of it, just to give you an idea of how it flows. Like I said, it's a super ballad, you know, but I kind of like those still, even before I do other types of music. And here it's got a lot of orchestration. I've been waiting for a while for you to find a sign. I wanna know, so tell me so. Since you came into my life. So anyway, that's enough of that. But I'm trying to control these 21 tracks to get a good balance, and the only way for me to do that effectively, for me, it was to do some bussing, which I'm show you how many buses I have. So I set up some buses here, and I've got a second brass section bus. I've got drums bus, background music, and the lead vocals. So I have all of those on a bus, which means that I don't have to control 21 tracks and trying to put this mix together. I can work in these particular groups and bring it all together for a mix that I feel like is better. And of course, if it doesn't work, also it makes it easier for me to make adjustments within the mix itself. Another issue is the lack of control. Without a clear hierarchy of tracks, it's easy to get lost in the mix, struggling to make sense of the multitude of sounds and frequencies that are out there competing for attention. And without a clear plan, the mix can quickly spiral out of control, leading to frustration and creative blockages. Moreover, ineffective bussing can also result in an unbalanced mix where certain elements overpower others, creating an uneven listening experience. So, by not having a clear strategy for grouping and processing tracks, producers risk compromising the overall quality of their mix. And lastly, bussing can be a major time saver. When tracks are not properly organized, you're all over the place, man. It can take hours to make even the smallest adjustments, leading to wasted time and energy. Now, there are several types of buses, each with its own unique purpose and function. And the first is the drum bus. You know, I love drums, right? But it allows me to process my drum tracks as a whole, adding punch, depth, and character to my rhythm section as I show you here. Now, I happen to bust my drums in every mix, every time. And the reason why is because I have a neat plug-in from Cakewalk. It's from my Cakewalk days, right? And it's called Cakewalk Percussion. So if I just go to the drums themselves, and I'll just play the drums by themselves just to show you how they sound. Nope, I can do better than that. I'm busing my drums over to a separate bus here. And this is the bus. And on this bus, I have this percussion module that I can actually adjust the tone of the bus. So if you listen to the drums in isolation, and I'm going to solo it, this is what they sound like. And I always like a crisp, hot hi-hat. If I take those effects off, you can barely hear the hi-hat. Now my hi-hat is more present, and that's what I like. So I like a nice hot hi-hat, and you can look at the EQ curve here, but I do that in all my songs. I always take percussion and move it over into a separate bus so that I can control the drums on my own and add different effects in the drums. If I had a salsa or a shaker or bongos or whatever, I would also include those in that bus over into the percussion track, which is drums, so that all of the drums would be on one single fader versus me going through and having 4 and 5 faders. But also, like I said, I love this FX percussion module that came from Cakewalk. It just allows so many things. Notice it's got a shaper, compressor, equalizer, expander. It's got all of these things in this module that helps me brighten my drums up. I know people have asked me in the past, you know, how come some of my songs that I made in Band in a Box, how come the drums sound so crisp
And one of the reasons why is because of this module. Because like I said, I can bring that hi-hat out and give it more presence in the mix or the toms or whatever. That's why I do that in drums.
Next up on the agenda for me, of course, is vocal busing, which enables me to fine tune the tone and feature of my vocal tracks, giving them a more polished and professional sound. And let me tell you, I need this because I have a ton of vocals going on. And remember, I do almost all of my vocals by myself, which means I do all the leads and all the background vocals. So it's so critical for me to do those and bust them in order to get a balance of sound. I mean, it is essential to my overall sound. It allows me to also mix complex vocals that are spread across multiple tracks, customize the effects track, adding width, depth, and interest to my mix. And it also allows me to add things like compression and EQ and reverb and delay and saturation, and to just name a few plugins. But by busing, I can do that on a single track versus doing it on a lot of individual tracks.
So if you notice here, I've got a lead vocal. I've got a lead vocal high, a lead vocal low, and you'll see I've got a few extra little nuances on these vocals to give them more presence. The high is hardwired to the left, and the other is hardwired to the right. And I've got my main lead vocal coming to the center. So in order to do that and get these right, notice how low I have the low one. It's really, really low. My lead vocal is a little on the high side, and the standard lead vocal is pretty high. So I don't want to sit here and have to try to play with those faders. So I'm bussing those over to a lead vocal track. And on that lead vocal track, I also get to put compression on it. So instead of me having to put a compressor on every single vocal track of the lead vocal, I can use one compressor and put it on the compressor track. And I also have my Lander effects plugin on that one single track. And this is what those vocals sound like. And if you look here, I'm going to pull this down a little bit. All this is lead vocal stuff right here. These three here, all these are lead vocals. And if you check it out, and like I said, I'll play it real quickly here and you'll see what it sounds like. I'm going to solo it just so you can hear. I've been waiting for a while. So you hear high tone, there's a low tone, which really fills the spectrum out when the mix is complete. So that's why I do that. Since you came into my life. And I know you hear verb, but it's not as present, and it's got that 60s flavor when it's played with the music. For example. So that's the lead vocal. Now for the background vocals, those things, I've got 3 background vocals. I did it 3 times and using kind of different phrases, trying to change my voice up a little bit for the background vocals. And in the background vocals, right, I've got those going to a single bus called background vocals. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? You know, and on the background vocals, I've got an effects and I've got a compressor on the background vocals. So if I play the background vocals in isolation, you will hear how, if you look at background 1, background 2, and background 3, I do have those centered. At least for now I do. I might change them later, but for now I do. And I'm routing those 3, which is track 19, 20, and 21. I'm going to control track 19, 20, and 21 just by using the fader on bus number E. Maybe it's time. Notice, asked by Unison. Make up your mind. Maybe I try to sound a little bit different in each pass so that I sound like 3 different people, right? Maybe it's time to make up your mind. Maybe. See, so if anybody thinks there's any tricks here, there are no tricks here. That's me harmonizing with myself 3 different times. And when it all comes together, again, I'm just doing this. I like to do this anyway. It's just fun for me to do. But I'm just go through with the music and everything together. Maybe Now, I think the lead voice is a little weak on that. I may go back and correct that. But that shows you that I am controlling 6 lines, 6 inputs on my mixer with 2 faders. 3 for the lead vocal, going into 1 fader called lead vocal. I'm sorry, going into 1 bus called lead bus. 3 background vocals going into 1 bus called background bus. And on those buses, I have separate effects and I have compressors. I do a lot of compressing also. So that works. Sorry. So that works so much better. So now look at all this stuff I got going on out of this 21 tracks. I'm reducing it by tremendously. I'm tremendously reducing it, the number of tracks I have to manage to get the mix together. And of course, I can always go back and remix it if I don't like the way it sounds, but that makes it so much easier.
You also have the instrumental bus, which groups together all of your melodic instruments, elements such as synthesizers, guitars, pianos. It allows you to create a cohesive and balanced sound. And by understanding the different types of buses and their purposes, you can create a more logical and efficient mixing workflow, streamlining your creative processes and achieving better results. Buzzing has personally revolutionized my mixing processes. The difference is night and day, I'm telling you. The drums snap into focus, the vocals pop out, the synths blend together seamlessly, and I can create a more cohesive sound and elevate my music production to the next level, making my tracks more radio ready. If you got a couple of minutes, check out this mix I did on the track of mine a couple of years ago, playing around on a Sunday afternoon, mixing my 3 and 4 part vocal harmonies. And surprisingly, this track was played last year on one of the largest soul internet radio stations in the US. And when they featured it, it got like 7,000 calls. And it's on their regular playlist. So, to all of my friends out there, my senior musicians, just remember, it's never too late to make music. Okay, you guys take care and have a great time. Bye.